Hey everyone, so I'm Joshua from Aviyel, and today we have Justin, a very good gentleman, and I've been talking a lot with him recently, and he's doing really great stuff for sustaining open source community, and he has founded a Sustain OSS initiative for the same, and he's also an open source program manager at Reblaze, and also led a lot of developer communities in past years and organized a lot of events all together for open source. So so happy new year first of all to everyone, and we have few attendees coming in, and that's last year I think there were a lot of things we faced and we conquered at the same time. So I hope this 2022 also, especially for the open source community, last year, as we see the statistics, there were a lot of things that were adding value to open source. So I think Justin would be the best person sharing about all the things. And today we are talking about sustaining the JavaScript open source community. And over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Joshua. Okay, cool. Hi, as Joshua says, my name is Justin Dorfman, and today we'll be talking about sustaining the open source JavaScript community. JavaScript has one of the largest ecosystems in the open source community, and according to GitHub's 2020 State of the Octoverse report, 94% of all active repositories on GitHub rely on JavaScript. In 2020, nearly 65,000 developers told Stack Overflow which languages they're using, and for the 8th straight year in a row, JavaScript has maintained its stronghold as the most commonly used programming language. Stack Overflow mentions that in the report that we see jQuery is still king, and this doesn't surprise me. I maintained the jQuery CDN for 3 years, and I co-founded and maintained Bootstrap CDN for 8 years, and during my tenure of 8 years, there were 4.3 trillion requests, 108 petabytes of bandwidth transferred, and sure, some were font files and CSS, but JavaScript is required for Bootstrap to fully function. Besides code, I'm on the selection committee for MOS, Mozilla's open source support program, where hundreds of JavaScript projects have submitted applications for grants over the years. I'm on the board of directors for the Open Source Collective. It's a nonprofit providing financial and legal infrastructure for thousands of open source projects, many of them in the JavaScript ecosystem, such as Babel, Webpack, ESLint, and Vue.js. I'm also advisor to JS Deliver, a free CDN for open source, mostly JavaScript. Why am I flexing? Why am I telling you all this? Well, I want to provide some context and proof that I actually have experience with everything I'm about to present. And like many open source software sustainers, I am not famous. What is a sustainer? What is an open source software sustainer? It's an individual who's concerned with the current state and future of essential open source projects. They mostly work behind the scenes to make sure the project stays alive. The XKCD comic you see on the right is what I believe to be the most important non-code open source contributions of the 21st century, because it really highlights what's wrong with free and open source software. This is what sustainers are looking to support, those projects that are maintained by one or two people that have many dependents. This is very common in the JavaScript community. Jory Burson is a sustainer. She finds ways to support maintainers like the XKCD Nebraskan by leading community engagement at the OpenJS Foundation. And speaking of foundations, I'm going to be saying this word a lot, so let me define it. Foundations are member-supported nonprofit organizations. They provide a neutral home for essential projects, infrastructure, such as cloud services, financial and marketing resources, oversight and accountability, and technical governance. The Linux Foundation has smaller foundations under its umbrella. For instance, I currently work with the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Since the company I work for, Reblaze, has donated a project called CuriFence. We donated it because we believe the best way to sustain an open source project is when it's part of a foundation. And as you can see, the OpenJS Foundation, who's waving us right there, is also under the Linux Foundation, being a neutral home for projects such as jQuery, Node.js, Webpack, and 35 other projects. Now, let me ask you, what do the following essential open source projects have in common? And if you give up, if you guessed they belong in a foundation, then you are correct. Why? Well, because they have no succession plan, no governance, no oversight, and they're controlled by a BDFL. A BDFL, for those who don't know, stands for Benevolent Dictator for Life, meaning project maintainers who retain the final say in disputes within the community. Now, here's the bottom line. Bootstrap, Vue.js, Babel, and React, they should all be in a foundation. Let's review the current state of the React open source project. So according to builtwith.com, 9.6 million sites use React. That means millions of developers make a living off of React. Now, React development is led by a small team working full-time at Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call it, meaning the priorities is what Facebook sets. There is no succession plan. There is no governance. There is no oversight committee. And that's concerning. And here's why. There's no doubt that Facebook has been great to the open source community. Let me be very clear on that. They have donated other projects, such as the NoSQL database Cassandra to the Apache Software Foundation. And I believe React should be next. And you might ask why? Because companies get bored. Look, they might not abandon React today or next year or maybe in the next 5 years, but remember Parse? Facebook acquired the firm for $85 million in 2013. In 2014, Parse powered 500,000 mobile apps, meaning 500,000 customers. In 2016, Facebook open sourced the Parse platform and announced it would shut down the service in 2017. Some might say, well, yeah, they open sourced Parse. Yeah, I will give them credit there, but that's not the point. The point is companies change priorities and can abandon a project at any time. Some have told me over the years that I'm overreacting, I'm being hyperbolic, and I say, am I, or are you just being in denial? Remember the left pad fiasco in 2016? Thousands of projects that used this as a dependency broke. It was a wake-up call for the industry. If LeftPad was in a foundation, this wouldn't have happened. And here's the truth. Since JavaScript is everywhere, it is a target for cybercriminals. I know this firsthand when Bootstrap CDN was hacked back in 2013. It wasn't by script kiddies. The attack was very, very sophisticated, and it took some planning and resources. They were financially motivated, and they weren't looking to collect a $300 bug bounty. So what can you do? I mean, what you can do is ask the maintainers of any project you find essential to you or your business the following. Are there any plans to join a foundation? If not, ask for clear accountability. For example, what happens if the domain for the docs expires? Who's in charge for that? Who's in charge of renewing the SSL certs if Let's Encrypt isn't used? How can your company sponsor this project? Are there any are they using Dependabot automatically to automatically monitor dependencies for known vulnerabilities? Is two-step enabled for all the maintainers of the project? Just start asking questions in GitHub discussions, Slack, Discord, email, DM, etc. Just please don't be rude. Just ask questions. Here's a pro tip. The next time you run npm install, to check to see if there's any packages you can sponsor, run npm fund. From there, you can see which packages need funding. It will link to their Open Collective or GitHub sponsors page account. And this is a great way to show your boss which packages you depend on most. So let's wrap this up. The current state of the open source JavaScript ecosystem scares me, and it really should scare you too. It scares the crap out of me. jQuery is not dead, number 2. Number 3, we need more open source sustainers. More on that in a little bit. Number 4, donations are great, but sponsoring a maintainer or project is better. Remember, run npm fund if in doubt. 5, ask your employer to sponsor a project your company depends on, or become a member of the OpenJSF. Don't assume they will say no. There's no harm in asking them, and everything to gain. Number 7, essential projects should be in foundations, a neutral home. Number 8, I'm not being hyperbolic. Cybercriminals target essential and popular JavaScript projects and infrastructure. Number 9, ask essential project maintainers sustainability questions. Don't be rude. Number 10, last but not least, talk to your colleagues about these threats to the JavaScript supply chain we all profit from. I mean, JavaScript's pretty cool, right? Then do your part to protect it. That is all the time I have left for today. I really appreciate you all coming out. I hope this will inspire you to become an open source sustainer by going to sustainoss.org to learn more. Big thanks to Joshua from Aviyel who put this event together, and thanks to my employer Reblaze for being awesome as always. My name is Justin Dorfman, and you can catch me on Twitter at @jdorfman. Thank you. That's all I got.
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, in very short span of time, I just learned a lot of stuff which I didn't really go through when I was a kid then, in 2013 and even before that. So really thank you for that. So there's a funny question over there. Anatoly Babania of, I think you can see in the chat.
What is really a board company? Oh, hey man, he's arbitrarily is a Sustain member, and I'm trying to read his. And people do they get bored? Yeah, I think people get bored as well. Maintainers of projects, they abandon them all the time. What I'm trying to get really at is essential and very popular projects that can have a huge impact on vulnerability in terms of vulnerabilities. So yeah, you're absolutely right, arbitrarily. It's definitely people as well. But what fears me the most is companies that have projects that are essential. React is an essential JavaScript project, and the fact that it's not in some sort of neutral home with the amount of with the big ecosystem it supports, I think is concerning. So that's what I meant by that. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, thanks for answering. So I have one more question, Justin, just to sum up the whole thing. So if there is a trending JavaScript project right now, and what step it should take forward, like in the decision making, in the governance, and whatever things might come in. So what is the next ideal step for the project to sustain for long?
I mean, it's interesting because, essential projects usually have a lot of people involved. Very popular projects usually have 1 to 2 maintainers, depending on the project. Sometimes very popular projects, not essential. And the way I kind of differentiate essential from not, if you run npm fund, as I said earlier, you will see what essential is. You will see Feroz's the amount of people that depend on Feroz's libraries and packages. Like that those are essential projects that would have a very deep impact if they were to get pulled from npm or have a vulnerability. That's kind of what I'm talking about. And definitely Feroz has some packages that should probably be in the OpenJSF, but really that's his call. What your question was, I kind of got off track. Can you ask it one more time, Josh? I really apologize.
I mean, if let's say it's an essential or an popular, whatever it is, what is the next possible step for them to take in the future to sustain the project? So should they just be under a foundation, as you mentioned, like under a foundation, join a foundation, or sell it to any other platform?
Yeah, I think for getting started, not every project qualifies to be in a foundation. It's just foundations can't sponsor every project.
Yeah.
But what you should do immediately is either get an open collective or a GitHub sponsors account and start collecting money. Because look, a lot of people say, I don't do it for the money. Okay, you still need to live. And it's very important that you start building up a nest egg so you can sponsor projects when it comes to fixing a security vulnerability, bringing in new features that a lot of people want on, that are blowing up GitHub issues saying, you need this, you need this. So I think collecting money and allocating that money to people that don't have the time to do it for free is very important and should be done whether you're in a foundation or not. I think once you hit the essential, the hundreds of thousands of different dependencies relying on your code, I don't think going into a foundation is going to be it's just not, I don't think, a good fit.
I think we have one more question from Victor, so you can take that as well. How does sustaining technology secure the ecosystem? Is it like a way to motivate those maintaining it, or paying to make the technologies more secure?
I think both. It's a lot of people don't see. A lot of people think open source is free, and it's just not. Chris Borchers, who founded the OpenJSF, pretty much the Open JavaScript Foundation, he said that. I'm not gonna take credit for it, but he says open source isn't free; it's just someone else is paying for it. So it's important that, I mean, especially now with security being such an issue with, Heartbleed, Log4j, but those are the ones that get a lot of coverage. There's still vulnerabilities every single day that come out that are just as serious, but maybe are not affecting as many as Log4j or Heartbleed, because those are essential projects, apparently. So, yeah, I think that motivation is something that different humans get motivated in different ways. And I think over the what I mean by that, let me back that up a little, is you have Daniel Stenberg, who's been writing, who founded curl and has been maintaining it for the last 27 years. I believe that's either between 25 and 30 years. He's every single day, 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, contributing to curl right after work. And you say, what is motivating him? And it really wasn't the money. Up until recently, he got an open collective, like within the past 2 years, to collect money to help pay for other features that companies wanted, or this and that. So not everyone can be a Daniel Stenberg, and that's fine, because he's one of a kind. So yeah, I mean, some get motivated by money, some don't. Look, you're not going to get rich from open source. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not going to happen. But if it helps you, if collecting money helps you sustain the project and help keep it going, by either hiring other people or supplementing your income, by, the sacrifices that you have to take to maintain a very popular project, then yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be shamed for it. It's just, you need to do what you need to do to get things going. But the most important thing is, if you start collecting money and all that other stuff, you need to start planning. You need to start a succession plan. Who is going to take this over when you go? Sorry, everyone dies. Some get hit by buses, some just die other ways. But either way, a project is not sustainable if it doesn't have a succession plan. And I think that should definitely be one of the criterias when you start collecting money.
Okay, yeah, thanks for answering that. Yeah, we are here for a few more minutes, and if you have some more questions, we are going to take that as well. And so yeah, I mean, I have been really motivated by the work which Justin has done in the Sustain OSS org. So you can go to sustainoss.org and see the work which they are doing, and there are a lot of discussions over there with great people over there.
Yeah. Arbitrarily, I forgot if it's Trelly or Trolley, but he's very prolific. He's always on the forums. But the main thing is, what Sustain OSS is about making sure the conversation about sustaining open source doesn't die. So whether we do it with podcasts, our forum, our mailing list, whatever it is, to basically get these projects the attention they need. And just as I said in the back, a lot of sustainers are in the background. They're not always on discourse or other things. They DM, they email, and try to get deals going through, so these essential and popular projects can be there for way longer, way after we're all retired or whatever.
Got it. So yeah, I think we also have Rachel joining in the audience. She's also a part of Rachel Lawson, a part of Sustain OSS org.
Yeah. Rachel is awesome. Yeah.
So, I mean,
for those who don't know, she's one of the innovators of non-code contribution acknowledgement. She works at the Drupal Association, and just really has done some really amazing work around that, because it's very hard to give open source contributors credit that don't write code. And open source is, you are an innovator. You're absolutely. And it's so important that we all know that open source is not just code. There's people behind it, and they do other jobs, like Joshua gets people knowing about Aviyel in their community and putting events on like this. You don't see that in a Git commit. There's no Git commit for that. So it's really important that we all know that non-code contributions are just as important as code contributions, especially for sustainers that are looking to sustain communities, not just with money, but with programs like what Rachel has created with the Drupal Association by giving non-code contributions credit.
So yeah, I mean, back to how you started, right? It was in November 2016. With a small tweet, and you gathered.
Honestly, it was a reply to Pia Mancini, who is the co-founder of Open Collective.
Okay.
My buddy, I just go back a little bit, but I did a talk in Portland, like in 2016. Like earlier in the year, and I met this guy Gregor. He was at my talk with like 2 other people, so it was like 3 people at the talk. But it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because he introduced me to Pia, and then Pia and I just started talking about open source sustainability and what she's doing with Open Collective and all that other stuff. And she posted something about how it's crazy to think about this, but it's like they raised $100,000. They collected $100,000 for open source companies, or for open source projects in 2016. They just announced a couple days ago they did 12. They collected 12 million. So as you can see, the Sustain OSS community is definitely it is growing, and it's really cool to see that. But yeah, it was a response to her tweet, and then this has never happened to me. A bunch of people started DMing me, like Brandon from GitHub, saying, "Hey, if you need a venue, let us know. We'll host." I was like, wow. Okay, cool. And then people's like, "Hey, could we sponsor?" I'm like, what is going on? I never get this type of attention, but it was so good because it just got us like started, and it was such a big collaboration. Nadia Egbal was involved with getting Gunnar, who was the at first we were going to do an unconference, where you just like basically go and show up, and we quickly just said that is just not going to work. Like, we just started hearing bad things about unconferences, like they're unorganized and people don't know what to do. So there's a facilitator named Gunnar who does a lot of Mozilla events, and Nadia Egbal, who wrote Roads and Bridges, that paper, and also Working in Public, the book. You could check that out. She's one of the anyway, yeah. So we hired him, and he did such an amazing job. After the event, we did a poll, and he had the highest, out of all the things. Like, how was the food? How was the venue? How was this? How was Gunnar? Like all the way to the roof. So, yeah, one tweet did all of that. But it's just crazy how things can take off like that. And wait, Rachel says, in Drupal, we had the advantage of taking control of our own issues. Code. I really want to find a way to enable that. Something too bad. Yeah, I mean, GitHub, I don't know if they're interested in that. But you know what would be great, Josh, if we could have Rachel do a talk on this. This
definitely
would be really, really great, and basically showing ways that GitHub can be more inclusive on finding ways to give people, give non-code contributors more prop. Yeah, we should have her on the next next event, because I would love to to see her talk. Let's see what Anatoly. How is it Drupal? Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure if GitLab, because I know Drupal uses GitLab over GitHub, so maybe there is a way that they have some hook, or I don't know. That would be a great question for her when she. I would love to hear more about. Okay, so maybe her and Tim, Rachel and Tim, can tag team on a talk.
I have been trying to connect with the GitLab team for a while, but it would be great if we can connect, so we can do something big from the sustainability community. So, yeah. So anything we just missed? I'm just looking at the chats. Open Collective is doing really great stuff, and 12.5 million, right? It was the
someone around that. Yeah, it just made me smile ear to ear, because as I said, when we did that tweet, it was 100,000, and now it's like gone up to 12 million, which means that more companies are aware of funding issues within open source. So it's really cool to see that. Yeah, because every year, open source is growing. It's not just like stagnant. So the more devices that open source software is on, obviously there's a bigger attack surface. So securing the supply chain is, whether it's a buzzword or not, it definitely needs to be more secure, because there's so many. It's really funny. I just did a podcast this morning with the people behind Let's Encrypt, and they basically, I didn't realize it, but Let's Encrypt is part of a bigger organization that does programs like working with like Daniel at Curl to make more code safe plugins to their code. So I don't know. I'm kind of paraphrasing right now, but when that drops, go to podcast.sustainoss.org and subscribe there, and you can see when that's coming up. It should be in a couple of weeks or something.
Awesome. I think that's it. Or any other comments? Okay, this was the slides for the GitLab.
Oh yeah, Anatoly is like dropping really good stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a tweet for later. Because it's for those who can't see the screen. It's a Google Doc, and it's got 20 character gibberish. So I can't just say it's blah 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 /HTML.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So
thanks for sharing that, and I'll keep a note. And I think we are done with the Kickstarter for this year. And for those who don't know, what Aviyel is trying to do is exactly open source sustainability. So you can see we have right now 5 open source projects. If you go to aviyel.com/projects, these are the projects which have good stars on GitHub. Like you can see Hopscotch, which is one of the most popular projects on GitHub last year, and it was, I think, top third or top fifth of GitHub, so entire GitHub. So these are the projects which are growing, like Justin mentioned, when the things were growing with the other projects in the OpenJS and other examples which he mentioned. So these are in the same growing phases, and it's our responsibility to sustain the projects and help the community to grow. So that's what Aviyel is trying to do, and whatever comes in between, we will learn it and we will achieve it. We are in that stage where we are welcome for all the collaboration, all the partnerships, all the opinions of different people, like Justin himself, great gentleman who shared a lot of things about open source which I didn't really know before this session. So you can also email me, joshua@aviyel.com, or you can connect me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can DM the Aviyel official Twitter handle, so we can take the conversation forward and help the open source community to sustain. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Now, let me ask you a question. So, exactly what is it you do to for sustainability with these projects? Do you like hook them up with Open Collective or GitHub sponsors? Like, how does that all work?
So yeah,
or is it more than just?
You can say it's more than just money, and the first thing is we are still in the beta phases right now. So what we have created is just a proof of concept of how we can sustain the project, and we are still experimenting and learning. So right now we have events platform, which is this one. So you can see we have created this beautiful platform from scratch.
I gotta say, the polish that you guys put on things, I'm just blown away. So yeah,
thanks really to the engineering team. So it is completely from scratch, and we are trying to bring in more projects into our events platform so that you can use Aviyel as their voice or the medium of voice. Yeah, and for those who don't know, Justin co-founded Bootstrap CDN. So just to let you all know, yeah.
108 petabytes of bandwidth, 4.3 trillion requests. It was a good 8 years. You know, it was good, and you know that one hack was like, I finally took a vacation. Like my bosses made me take a vacation. Like, dude, you work like constantly. This is in my 20s, so I was just, you know, had a lot more energy. And someone sent me a tweet on, you know, someone sent me an @reply on Twitter saying, "Wow, great job, Bootstrap CDN. You're spreading malware." And I'm like, "What?" And I like check it out. It's like, nah, this is. I pulled on the side of the road, and I was like, nah, this is a false positive. And then I go 20 more miles, and then my boss calls me. He's like, "Dude, we got a major problem." I'm like, my heart just drops to my feet. And I'm like, oh man. And as I said in the talk, these guys were really good at what they did. They covered their tracks super well. Like, I mean, we were all like, even though we were all pissed off, we were like, damn, that's gangster. You know, they just did it so well. But yeah, it was horrible. We spread JavaScript malware to anyone who had Windows 7 and IE8. This is 2013, so believe it or not, those were still prevalent. Oh, IE6. Yeah, IE6. And if you had IE6, it would run this Java program that would install malware. So we didn't know what the extent of it was, but it got fixed, and I thought it was the end of the project, but it ended up growing even more. So yeah, good times.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And
any anecdote you ever want, just let me know.
Yeah, I think it's great to have you on the platform, it's just January. I know January is a time where people try to focus on restructuring everything and try to focus on new things. So definitely we are going to bring up a lot of events in February as well. And Justin, we want you to be on the podcast with one of the founders very soon. So
Yeah.
so we can talk a lot about what you have in your mind as well. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining. And it's almost 11:20 in India, and it's morning in Pacific and the Eastern. Good morning to everybody over there. So great to have you in the Aviyel platform. So you can just connect with me anytime if you have anything to discuss about open source sustainability, or if you want to collaborate or join hands just to support all these things. And yeah, thank you so much.